Welcome to Tranceformation Talks, where we explore the world of hypnosis and its impact on mindset and mental health. I'm your host, Julie Chal, trauma-informed rapid transformational therapist, clinical hypnotherapist, educator, and coach. As this podcast may feature powerful hypnosis in some episodes, please avoid listening to the hypnosis section of this recording while driving or operating machinery. You may come back to this section of the podcast when you're seated comfortably without any distractions or lying down. Hypnosis is not suitable for those with epilepsy, psychosis, or severe mental health issues. In each episode, I'll guide you through real-life client stories, sharing insights from my practice and experience. Whether you're curious about hypnosis or seeking personal growth, you're in the right place. So sit back, relax, and get ready to explore the potential of hypnosis for positive change. So let's get started. Hello and welcome back to Tranceformation Talks. I'm Julie, and today's episode, Why Emotional Intelligence Isn't Possible Without Inner Healing, might ruffle a few feathers. And I'm completely okay with that. Why? Because we're diving into a truth that's rarely spoken out loud, not in leadership circles, not in wellness spaces, and not even in many therapy rooms. The truth is this: real emotional intelligence, embodied, authentic emotional intelligence, simply isn't possible without inner healing. And yes, I said it, and I stand by every word. Now, don't get me wrong. I have enormous respect for Daniel Goleman, the psychologist and science journalist who popularized the concept of emotional intelligence in the 1990s. And his groundbreaking book, Emotional Intelligence, shifted how the world viewed success, showing us that IQ alone wasn't enough. That the ability to understand, manage, and harness emotions could make or break relationships, careers, and lives. And Goleman outlined 5 core pillars: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills that became the framework for how we understand EQ even today. But here's the catch. While Goleman's pillars are undeniably essential for understanding and practicing emotional intelligence, there's something crucial that's often overlooked. You can't truly embody these abilities if your emotional landscape is shaped by unhealed wounds. In other words, no matter how much you know about the theory of EQ, if your emotional responses are still rooted in unresolved trauma, your self-awareness will be clouded, your self-regulation compromised, and your empathy limited to the extent of your own healing. True emotional intelligence isn't just about understanding emotions. It's about the ability to feel deeply and respond authentically. And that requires healing the wounds that are blocking you from being present with your own feelings and others. So here's what's often missed in that conversation: the how. How do we actually develop those authentic EQ skills, and what holds us back from fully embodying them? The hard truth is that many people aren't truly living emotional intelligence. They're performing it. And no matter how polished the performance, it's not genuine emotional intelligence. It's often just unhealed pain dressed up as professionalism. So let me take you a bit deeper. True emotional intelligence isn't about sounding composed in meetings or saying the right thing during a conflict. It's about being able to feel safely, consistently, and compassionately with yourself and with others. But that's nearly impossible if your emotional responses are still shaped by old wounds you haven't had the chance to heal. And that survival instinct plays out in many areas of your life, including leadership, relationships, and even in the home. So let's get real. What does this look like in real life beyond the theory? I'll give you an example. So take the case of a former client I call the shutdown CEO. On paper, she was the picture of success. Confident, articulate, leading a major corporation. But anytime a particular board member spoke, she'd freeze. Her throat would close, her mind would go blank, her body would shake. She described it as disassociation. It's like I'm there, but I'm not. And I can see everyone, but I feel totally disconnected. The reason? That board member's tone triggered a subconscious memory of a parent who used to belittle her as a child. Her adult brain knew she was in a boardroom, but her nervous system, it wasn't in the boardroom. It was back in that childhood moment, reliving the fear, the shame, the powerlessness. And in that moment, emotional intelligence wasn't accessible. Not self-awareness, not self-regulation, not empathy, because she wasn't present. She was in survival mode. And that's the truth about trauma or unresolved wounds. It hijacks the present, and you can't respond, you react. And you can't empathize, you protect. And when your entire inner world is shaped by unhealed pain, EQ becomes a facade. And this plays out across genders. While women are often socialized to suppress anger and prioritize harmony, many men are taught to suppress vulnerability, to toughen up, power through, perform strength. But this too is emotional repression. For many men, they're conditioned to associate emotions like sadness, fear, or tenderness with weakness. So when life demands those emotions in parenting, in partnership, in loss, they shut down, lash out, or escape. And here's what I want you to know. This isn't a lack of character, it's an attachment wound. Let's talk about that for a second. Your attachment style formed in early childhood is the blueprint for how you relate to intimacy, conflict, and emotional safety. An anxious attachment style might lead someone to overfunction emotionally, constantly people-pleasing to avoid abandonment. An avoidant attachment might cause emotional detachment, intellectualizing everything to avoid vulnerability. And a disorganized attachment style, often rooted in trauma, swings between clinginess and emotional shutdown. And none of these patterns support authentic emotional intelligence. They support survival. And that survival shows up in leadership, in relationships, in friendships. So let's imagine a woman in your friend group. She finally opens up. She shares she's not okay, that she's struggling. And the room goes quiet. Someone changes the subject, another walks away. Not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to stay. Because most of us weren't taught how to sit with emotional discomfort. We were taught to fix it, to flee from it, or fake it. As Dr. Gabor Mate, leading expert in trauma and addiction, says, trauma is not what happens to you. It's what happens inside you. It's the disconnection, the split, the part of you that can't be with your own pain or anyone else's. And Brené Brown, A research professor who spent decades studying vulnerability and leadership puts it perfectly. We can only be as compassionate with others as we are with ourselves. So let's look at another example. The narcissistic leader. Polished, charismatic, fluent in the language of EQ, but zero ability to take feedback, no genuine empathy, and a hair-trigger defensiveness. I've worked with someone like this. He could quote the theory of emotional intelligence better than anyone. But in practice, he lacked humility, he lacked emotional safety, both for himself and others. And his EQ was a mask, a power strategy, not a way of being. And you see, narcissism isn't a personality quirk. And while it's classified as a disorder, I often see it as a deeply ingrained defense, a response to shame, emotional neglect, or conditioned love in early life. In order to survive, the child builds a false self, polished, in control, untouchable, to protect the vulnerable parts underneath. But here's the thing. You can't build true emotional intelligence on top of a false self. You have to dismantle the mask and heal what's beneath. And the hard truth is this: narcissists don't change. Not because they can't, but because they won't. The very structure of narcissism is built to avoid vulnerability. True change would require deep self-awareness, accountability, and emotional exposure, and that's the exact territory the narcissistic psyche is wired to avoid at all costs. So while they may mimic empathy or say the right things, it's often cognitive, not embodied. It's performance, not connection. Because connection requires presence, and presence requires safety. And for someone stuck behind a false self, presence feels like a threat. Now, the example of the narcissistic leader might feel extreme, but the truth is, narcissism exists in all realms of life. It's not limited to CEOs or public figures. It can show up in the workplace, in families, in romantic relationships, even in social groups. You might see it in the partner who constantly needs admiration but can't handle feedback. The parent who makes everything about themselves. The friend who disappears the moment you need support, but expects you to always be available for them. These are all expressions of a fragile sense of self, masked by control, charm, or defensiveness. And this is where emotional intelligence gets distorted. Because when someone is operating from a false self, connection becomes transactional. Vulnerability becomes threatening, and empathy, it's often surface level, more about image than impact. Something for you to ponder. But let's move on to emotional intelligence at home. Think about the partner who can't hold space. The moment you bring up something vulnerable, they shut down or explode. But when you're raised by emotionally unavailable, emotionally immature, or emotionally unintelligent parents or caregivers, often because of their own upbringing, you don't even know what emotional intelligence is. You've never seen it modeled, so how could you embody it? In fact, before I did my own inner work, I wasn't emotionally intelligent either. I was reactive, harsh, defensive. My empathy was performative, not embodied. Because when your conditioning and nervous system are stuck in survival, you don't know how to be present. You only know how to protect, respond, and behave the way you were taught to. But healing changed everything. I'm not perfect, but I now am more aware and attuned to my own emotions and how I respond. And this is what I see every day as a rapid transformational therapist. When clients access and heal the unconscious root cause of their emotional pain, their entire capacity shifts. They become emotionally available, grounded, present, connected. And they stop performing EQ and start living it. Because you can't read your way into emotional intelligence. It's not a cognitive skill that you learn from a book or a 2-day workshop. You have to heal your way into it. So, if you've ever wondered why you struggle to stay present in hard conversations, why you freeze in moments of stress, why you can't hold space for your child, your partner, or even for yourself, you're not broken. You're just carrying pain that hasn't been processed yet. Emotional intelligence, you see, isn't a skill you sprinkle on top of unresolved wounds or emotional repression. It's a way of being that emerges after you've done the inner work. So if this episode resonates with you and you're ready to explore what emotional intelligence could look like in your life, I invite you to take a brave step. Remember, you don't have to walk this path alone. And if you're ready to heal at the root cause, reach out. I'm here to support you on this journey. And I'll leave you with this. Real leadership, real love, and real connection start with healing. If this hits a nerve, that's not a coincidence. That's your body recognizing truth. Don't ignore it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. And remember, you don't need to perform emotional intelligence. You just need to feel safe enough to embody it. Thank you for tuning into Transformation Talks. If you've enjoyed this show, please tap the follow button and share it with someone who may benefit from it. Your support means the world to me. If this podcast has helped you in any way, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave a review in the show notes. Lastly, if any of these episodes have resonated with you and you'd like support, please book a free connection call with me. The link is in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.